Namaskar. MA Philosophy, MPY 001, Block number 3, Unit number 2, Samkhya. Objectives. After reading this unit, you should be able to understand the orthodox system of Samkhya, interpret the Samkhya theory of causation, explain the Samkhya concept of Prakriti, discuss the Samkhya concept of Purush, know the Samkhya theory of knowledge, elucidate the Samkhya concept of bondage and liberation, comprehend the conception of bondage and liberation. Introduction. The sage Kapil is the founder of the Samkhya system. The Samkhya must be a very old system of thought. Its antiquity appears from the fact that the Sankhya tendency of thought pervades all the literature of ancient India, including the Shrutis, Smritis, and Puranas. According to tradition, the first work of the Sankhya school is the Sankhya Sutra. Next to Kapila, his disciple Asuri and Asuri's disciple Panchasika, who wrote some books which aimed at a clear and elaborate exposition of the Sankhya system. The Sankhya is a philosophy of dualistic realism. Sankhya admits two ultimate realities, namely Purush and Prakriti, which are independent of each other in respect to their existence. Purush is an intelligent principle of which consciousness, Chaitanya, is not an attribute but the very essence. It is the self which is quite distinct from the body, the senses, and the mind manas. It is beyond the whole world of objects and is the eternal consciousness which witnesses the changes and the activities going on in the world, but does not itself act and change in any way. Physical things like chairs, beds, etc. exist for the enjoyment of beings other than themselves. Therefore, there must be the Purusha or the self which is distinct from Prakriti or primary matter, but is the enjoyer of the products on the products of the Prakriti. There are many different selves related to different bodies. For when some men are happy, others are unhappy. Some die, but others live. Prakriti is the ultimate cause of the world. It is an eternal unconsciousness principle which is always changing and has no other end than the satisfaction of the self. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are three constituent of Prakriti, which holds them together in a state of rest or equilibrium. The three are called gunas, but they are not qualities or attributes in any sense. Rather, they are three substantial elements which constitute Prakriti, like three chords making up a rope. The existence of the gunas is referred from the qualities of pleasure, pain, and indifference which we find in all things of the world. The same sweet is liked or disliked or treated with indifference by the same man in different conditions. The same salad is tasteful to one, distasteful to another, and insipid to a third. Now the cause and the effect are essentially identical. The effect is the manifested condition of the cause. Oil as an effect manifests what is already contained in the seeds. The things of the world are effects which have the qualities of pleasure, pain, and indifference. Therefore, Prakriti, which is their ultimate cause, must have the three elements of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, which respectively possesses the nature of pleasure, pain, and indifference, and cause, manifestation, activity, and passivity. The evolution of the world has its starting point in association of the Purush and Prakriti, which disturb the original equilibrium of later and moves it to action. The Purush or the self is neither the cause nor the effect of anything. Prakriti is the uncaused cause of all objects. Once we realize the distinction between the self and the non-self, including the body and the senses, the mind, the intellect, and the ego, our self ceases to be affected by the joys and sorrows, the ups and the downs of life. It rests in itself as the dispassionate observer of the show of events in the world without being implicated in them. Theory of causation. The Sankhya metaphysics, especially in doctrine of Prakriti, rest mainly on its theory of causation, which is known as Satkaryavad. It is the theory as to the relation of an effect to its material cause. The specific question discussed here in this: does an effect originally exist in the material cause prior to its production? Appearance as an effect. The Buddhist and the Nyaya Vaisesik answer this question in the negative. According to them, the effect cannot be said to exist before it is produced by some cause. If the effect already existed in the material cause prior to its production, there is no sense in our speaking of it as being caused or produced in any way. Further, we cannot explain why the activity of any efficient cause is necessary for the production of the effect. If the pot already existed in the clay, why should the potter exert himself and use his implements to produce it? Moreover, if the effect were already in its material cause, it would logically follow that the effect is indistinguishable indistinguishable from the cause, and that we should use the same name for both the pot and the clay, and also that the same purpose would be served by a pot and a lamp or a lamp of clay. It cannot be said that there is a distinction of form between the effect and its material cause, for then we have to admit that there is something in the effect which is not to be found in its cause, and therefore the effect does not really exist in the cause. This theory that the effect does not exist in the material cause prior to its production is known as asat karyavad. The view that the karya or the effect is asat or non-existent before its production. It is also called arambavad, the theory of the beginning of effect anew. Sankhyas repudiate this theory of causation and establish their view of Sankaravad, Shatkaravad, namely that the effect exists in the material cause even before it is produced. This view is based on the following ground. Number one, if the effect were really non-existent in the material cause, then no amount of effort on the part of any agent could bring it into existence. Can any man turn blue into red or sugar into salt? Hence, when an effect is produced from some material cause, we are to say that it pre-exists in the cause and is only manifested by certain favorable conditions, as when oil is produced by pressing seeds. The activity of efficient cause, like the potter and his tool, is necessary to manifest the effect pot which exists implicitly in the clay. Number two, there is an invariable relation between the material cause and its effect. A material cause can produce only that effect with which it is causally related. It cannot produce an effect which is in no way related to it, but it cannot be related to what does not exist. Hence, the effect must exist in the material cause before it is actually produced. Number three, we see that only certain effects can be produced from certain causes. Curd can be caught only out of milk and a cloth only out of threads. This shows that the effect somehow exists in the cause. Had it not been so, any effect could be produced from any cause. The potter would not have taken clay to produce pots instead of taking milk or threads or any other thing. Number four, the fact that only a potent cause can produce a desired effect goes to show that the effect must be potentially contained in the cause. The potent cause of an effect is that which possesses some power that is definitely related to the effect, but the power cannot be related to the effect if the latter does not exist in the some form. This means that effect exists in the cause in an unmanifested form before its production or manifestation. Number five, if the effect be really non-existent in the cause, then we have to say that what it is produced is non-existent, so comes into existence. Something comes out of nothing, which is absurd. Number six, we see that the effect is not different from but essentially identical with the material cause. If therefore the cause exists, the effect also must exist. In fact, the effect and the cause are the explicit and implicit states of the same substance. A cloth is not really different from the threads of which that is made. A statue is the same as its material cause, stone with new shape and form. The weight of the table is the same as that the piece of wood used in it. The conclusion drawn by the Sankhya form and from all this is that the effect exists in the material cause even before its production or appearance. This is the theory of Satkaryavad, the view that the effect is existent before its appearance. The theory of Satkaryavad has got two different forms, namely Parinamavad and Vivartavad. According to the former, when an effect is produced, there is a real transformation parinam of the cause into the effect. The production of a pot from clay or of curd from milk. The Sankhya is in favor of this view as a further specification of the theory of Satkaryavad. The Vivartavad, which is accepted by the Advait Vedantis, holds that the change of the cause into the effect is merely apparent. When we see a snake in a rope, it is not the case that the rope is only transformed into a snake. What happens is that the rope only appears as, but is not really a snake. So also God or Brahman does not become really transformed into the world produced by him, but remains identically the same, while we may wrongly think that he undergoes change and becomes the world. Theory of knowledge. The Sankhya theory of knowledge follows in the main its dualistic metaphysics. It accepts only three independent sources of valid knowledge, praman. There are perception, inference, and scriptural testimony, sabda. The other source of knowledge like comparison, postulation, arthapatti, and non-cognition, anupalabdhi, are included under these and not recognized as separate source of knowledge. Valid knowledge, prama is a definite and unerring cognition of some object through the modification of buddhi or the intellect, which reflect the consciousness of the self in it. What we call the mind or the intellect is an unconscious material entity in the Samkhya philosophy. The consciousness or intelligence, mm, Chaitanya, really begins to the self, but the self cannot immediately apprehend the objects of the world. If we could, we should always know all objects, since the self in us is not finite and limited, but all pervading. The self knows objects through the intellect, the manas, and the senses. We have a true knowledge of objects when through the activity of senses and the manas. Their forms are impressed on the intellect, which in its turn reflects the light or consciousness of the self. In all valid knowledge, there are three factors, namely the subject, mm, prama, uh, pramata, the object prame, and the ground or source of knowledge praman. The subject, being a conscious principle, is no other than the self as pure consciousness. Shuddha Chetana, the modification vritti of the intellect through which the self knows an object, is called praman. The object presented to the self through this modification is prame. Prama or valid knowledge is the reflection of the self in the intellect as modified into the form of the object, because without the self's consciousness, the unconscious intellect cannot cognize anything. Perception is the direct cognition of an object through its contact with some sense. When an object like the table comes within the range of your vision, there is contact between the table and your eyes. The table produces certain impressions or modifications in the sense organ, which are analyzed and synthesized by manas or the mind. Through the activity or the sense and the mind, buddhi or the intellect becomes modified and transformed into the shape of table. The intellect, however, being an unconscious material principle, cannot be itself know the object, although the form of the object is present in it. But as the intellect has an excess of sattva, it reflects like transparent mirror the consciousness of the self purush with the reflection of the self consciousness in it. In the unconsciousness modifications of the intellect into the form of the table becomes illumined into a conscious state of perception, just as mirror reflects the light of a lamp and thereby manifests other things. So the material principle of buddhi, being transparent and bright, sattvika, reflects the consciousness of the self and illuminates the or cognize the objects of knowledge. There are two kinds of perception, namely nirvikalpa or indeterminate, and savikalp or the determinate. The first arises at the first moment of contact between the sense and its object, and its antecedent to all mental analysis and synthesis of the sense data. It is accordingly called alochana or a mere sense of sensing of the object. The second kind of perception is the result of the analysis, synthesis, and interpretation of sense data by manas or the mind. So it is called vivechana or the judgment of the object. It is the determinate cognition of an object as a particular kind of thing having certain qualities and standing in certain relations to other things. Inference is the knowledge of the one term of the relation which is not perceived through the other, which is perceived and known to be invariably related to the first. In it, what is perceived later lead us on to the knowledge of what is unperceived through the knowledge of a universal relation between two. Inference is first divided into two kinds, namely vita and avita. It is called vita or affirmative when it is based on a universal affirmative propositions, or and avita or negative when based on a universal negative propositions. The third praman is shabda or testimony. It is constituted by authoritative statements of aptavachan and gives the knowledge of objects which cannot be known by perception and inference. Prakriti, the theory that causation means the real transformation of the material cause lead to the concept of Prakriti. As the root cause of the world of objects, all worldly effects are latent in this uncaused cause. Because infinite regress has to be avoided, it has the potentiality of nature, the receptacle and nurse of all generation. As the uncaused root cause, it is called Prakriti. As the first principle of this universe, it is called Pradhan. As the unmanifest state of all effects, it is known as Avyakta. As the extremely subtle and imperceptible thing which is only inferred from its products, it is called Anuman. As the unintelligent and unconscious principle, it is called Jada. As the ever active unlimited power, it is called Shakti. These products are cause dependent, relative, many and temporarily, as they are subject to birth and death or the production and destruction. But Prakriti is uncaused, independent, absolute, one and eternal, being beyond production and destruction. The entire world of object is implicit in the bosom of Prakriti, unintelligent, unmanifest, uncaused, ever active, im- imperceptible, and eternal. Prakriti alone is the first final source of this world of objects, which is implicitly and potentially contained in its bosom. Sankhya gives final five proof of the existence of Prakriti, which are as follows. All individual things in the world are limited, dependent, conditional, and infinite. The finite cannot be the cause of the universe. Logically, we have to proceed from the finite to the infinite, from the limited to the unlimited, from the temporary to the permanent, from the many to the one. And it is this infinite, unlimited, eternal, and all pervading Prakriti which is the source of this universe. Number second, all worldly things possess certain common characteristics by which they are capable of producing pleasure, pain, and indifference. Hence, there must be a common source composed of three gunas for which all worldly things arise. Number three, all effects arise from the activity of the potent cause. Evolution means the manifestation of the hetero implicit as a explicit. The activity which generates evolution must be inherent in the world class, and this cause is Prakriti. Number 4, the effect differs from the cause, and hence the limited effect cannot be regarded as its own cause. The effect is the explicit and the cause is the implicit state of the same process. The effects therefore points to a world cause where they are potentially contained. Number 5, the unity of the universe points to a single cause, and this cause is Prakriti. Prakriti is said to be the unity of the three gunas held in equilibrium. The three gunas are Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. They are the constituent of Prakriti, and through it of the worldly objects. Being subtle and imperceptible, their existence is inferred from their effects, pleasure, pain, and indifference, respectively. Sattva literally means real or existent, and is responsible for the manifestation of objects in consciousness. It is called goodness and produces pleasure. It is a light and bright, buoyant and illuminating. Rajas, which literally means for foulness, it is the principle of motion. It produces pain, restless activity, feverish effort, and wild simultaneous are its result. It is mobile and stimulating. Its color is red. Tamas, which literally means darkness, is the principle of inertia. It produces apathy and indifference, ignorance, sloth, confusion, bewi- bewilderment, passivity, and negativity are its result. Purush. Purush is the principle of pure consciousness. Purush is the soul, the self, the spirit, and the spirit, the subject, the knower, the brain, and not mind or ego or intellect. It is not a substance which possesses the quality of consciousness. Consciousness is its essence. It is itself pure and transcendental consciousness. It is the ultimate knower, which is the foundation of all knowledge. It is the pure subject, and as such can never become an object of knowledge. It is the silent witness, the emancipated alone, the neutral seer, the peaceful eternal. It is beyond time and space, beyond change and activity. It is self-luminous and self-proof. It is uncaused, eternal, and all pervading. It is the mm, in indubitable real, the postulate of knowledge, and all doubts and denials presuppose its existence. Sankhya gives the following five proof of the existence of Purusha. All compound subjects exist for the sake of Purusha. The body, the senses, the mind, and the intellect are all means to realize the end of the Purusha. The three gunas, the Prakriti, the subtle body, all are said to serve the purpose of the self. Evolution is teleological and purposive. Prakriti evolves itself in order to serve the Purushas, and this proof is teleological. All objects are composed of the three gunas and therefore logically presuppose the existence of the Purushas, who is the witness of three gunas and is himself beyond them. The three gunas imply the conception of a uh, nistre, nistregunas, nistregunya, conception of Nistraigunya, and which is beyond them. This proof is logical. There must be a transcendental, synthetic unity of pure consciousness to coordinate all experiences. All knowledge necessarily presupposes the existence of the self. The self is the foundation, the fundamental postulate of all empirical knowledge. All affirmations and all negations equally presuppose it. Without it, experience would not become experience. This proof is ontological. Non-intelligent Prakriti cannot experience its products, so there must be an intelligent principle to experience the worldly products of Prakriti. Prakriti is the enjoyed, and so there must be an enjoyer. All objects of the world have the characteristics of producing pleasure, pain, and bewilderment. But pleasure, pain, bewilderment have meaning only when there is a conscious principle to experience them. Hence, Purusha must exist. This argument is ethical. Number 5. There are persons who try to attain release from the sufferings of the world. The desire for liberation and emancipation implies the existence of a person who can try for and obtain liberation. Aspirations presupposes the aspirant. This proof is mystical and or religious. The theory of evolution. Prakriti is the fundamental substance out of which the world evolves. Prakriti is regarded as the essentially dynamic. It is always changing. Even in dissolution, there is homogeneous change. Evolution starts when there is heterogeneous change in the gunas, and one predominates over the other two. When Rajas, the principle of activity, vibrates and make the other two vibrate, the process of creation begins. There is neither creation nor destruction of gunas. Production is only a manifestation or evolution, and destruction is non-manifestation and concealment. Evolution is cyclic. Alternative period of evolution, sarga, and dissolution, pratyay. Sarga and dissolution, pralay. Prakriti evolves the world of objects when it comes in contact with the Purusha. Even though Prakriti and the Purush are diametrically opposed to each other in their nature, they come together just as the blind man and lame man can cooperate in order to get out of the forest. So the non-intelligent Prakriti and the inactive Purush combine and cooperate to serve their respective interests. Prakriti needs the presence of Purusha in order to be known or appreciated by someone. Dar, darsh, darshanartham or Purusha requires the help of Prakriti in order to discriminate itself from the latter and thereby attain liberation Kaivalyartham. Purusha is reflected in the intellect Buddhi and wrongly identifies himself with his own reflection in the Buddhi. It is the reflection of Purusha which comes into a contact with Prakriti and not the Purush himself. Sang, Sankhya simply assumes from the beginning that Purush and Prakriti are together. It is and its analysis includes only a description of the mutual interaction of the principles together with the description of the means to attain freedom. The process of evolution as evolution begins, there is gradual differentiation and integration of the three gunas. And as a result of their combination in different proportions, the various objects of the world originate. Mahat, the great is the first product of the evolution of Prakriti. It is the basis of intelligence, buddhi of the individual. Buddhi emerges when Sattva predominates over Rajas and Tamas. The special functions of buddhi are ascertainment and decision making. Mahat produces ahamkar. It is the principle of individuation. It produces the notion of I and mine. Ahankar is bifurcated into the subjective series and the objective series. Ahankar in its asatto aspect evolves into manas, the five sense organs of perception, and the five motor organs, sense of action. The five sense organs, mm, Jnanendriyas, function of sight, smell, taste, touch, and sound. The five senses of action, Karmendriyas, function of speech, apprehension, movement, exertion, and reproduction. Ahamkara is in its tamas aspect evolves into the five subtle senses. Ta, tamas tanmatras, the sense of sight, smell, taste, touch, and sound. Ahamkara in its rajas aspect play its part in both. The five subtle essence evolve into the five gross elements of earth, water, light, air, and ether by the predomination of tamas Mahabhutas. Thus, the process of evolution of the universe includes the operation of 24 principles, of which Prakriti is the first. The five gross elements are the last, and the 10 organs and five tanmatras are the intermediate ones. All the same, it is not complete in itself because it has a necessary reference to the world of selves as they witness and enjoys. The evolution is purposive. The evolution of Prakriti into the world of objects make it possible for the selves to enjoy or suffer the consciousness of their good and bad actions, merits and demerits. Ultimate end of evolution of Prakriti, therefore, is the freedom, mukti of Purusha. Bondage and liberation. The earthly life is full of three kinds of pain. The first kind, called adhyamic, it is due to intra-organic psychophysical cause and includes all mental and bodily sufferings. The second, adhibhutic, is due to extraordinary natural causes like man, beast, birds, thorns, etc. The third, Adidevic, is due to supernatural causes like the planets, elementary agencies, ghosts, demons, etc. Wherever there are gunas, there are pains. Even the so-called pleasures lead to pain. Even the life in heaven is subject to the gunas. The end of man is to get rid of these three kinds of pain and suffering. Liberation means complete cessation of all. Liberation means complete cessation of all sufferings, which is the summum bonum, the highest end of life. Purush is free and pure consciousness. It is inactive, indifferent, and possesses no attribute. It is above time and space, merit and demerit, bondage and liberation. It is only when it mistakes its reflection in the buddhi for itself and identifies itself wrongly with the internal organ, the intellect, the ego, and the mind, that it is said to be bound. It is the ego and not the Purush which is bound. When the Purush realizes its own pure nature, it gets liberated. When in fact it is all it all it is it always was. Hence, bondage is due to ignorance and non-discrimination between the self and the non-self. Liberation cannot obtain by means of actions. Karma, good or bad or indifferent, is the function of the gunas and lead to bondage and not to liberation. Good actions may lead to heaven and bad actions to hell. But heaven and hell alike, like this worldly life, are subject to pain. It is only knowledge which lead to liberation, because bondage is due to ignorance, and ignorance can be removed only by knowledge. The jiva has to realize itself as the pure Purusha through discrimination between Purusha and Prakriti. Actions and fruits, merits and demerits, pleasures and pain are known to the non-self. The knowledge that I am not the non-self, that nothing is mine, that ego is unreal, when constantly meditated upon, become pure, in incontrovertible and absolute, and lead to liberation. Sankhya believes that bondage and liberation are only phenomenal. The bondage of the Purush is a fiction. It is only the ego, the product of Prakriti, which is bound, and consequently it is only the ego which is liberated. Purusha in its complete isolation is untouched by bondage and liberation. Ishvara Krishna says that Purusha is really neither bound, nor is it liberated, nor does it transmigrate. Bondage, liberation, and transmigration belong to Prakriti in its manifold form. Let us sum up. In this unit, we have tried to get clear ideas about the central concepts of Sankhya. The Sankhya metaphysics, especially its doctrine of Prakriti, rests mainly on its theory of causation, which is known as Sankaravad, which is known as Satkaryavad. It is the theory as to the relation of an effect to its material cause. Prakriti is the ultimate cause of the world of objects. The Purusha is an indoubtable reality. Purush or self is pure, eternal, and all-pervading consciousness. Sankhya accepts only three independent sources of valid knowledge. There are perception, inference, and scriptural testimony. The other sources of knowledge, like comparison, postulation, and non-cognition, are included under these three and not recognized as separate sources of knowledge. Finally, we conclude the unit with the expression that in the Sankhya system, liberation is just the absolute and complete cessation of all pain without a possibility of return. Thank you.